To record and share with you our first primary art unit preview. If you have any questions that arise through this presentation, please just jot them down and you can email them to me at the address listed on this slide. And I am Laura Davidson. Those of you who have known me before as Laura Massey, my email is still the same, but my name has changed this school year. Moving on to the goals for this presentation and why I've created it, this is something that all CTLs are providing for their teams this school year. However, my personal hope is that we will be able to use this as a tool to develop and enhance your understanding of the PYP planning process and to help it be a valuable part of your instruction. We have a high level of teacher retention on our team, so many of you have attempted this planning process before. My goal is to make this a flexible tool that you can meet at your own level, whether you're new to PYP planning and feel confident already or this is brand new. As you work through this presentation, please feel free to jot down questions as they arise and seek clarification either via email or during virtual office hours. I would love to address any FAQs that come up through this in my next unit preview, since more than likely we'll all have the same questions and challenges. And before we continue, I want to just remind everyone that this is a planning document that can be intimidating at first. I have to be very honest with myself that this summer I was battling feeling like I've already planned this, why should I work on it again? But I know that I wrote these documents last year with much less knowledge and experience than I have with the process at this point. So we have a duty to ourselves and our scholars to make these plans as strong as possible, but we also know that we will be in the same place again next school year. So embrace this as a creative challenge and remind yourself that teaching stays exciting because we have the power to innovate every year. Don't feel discouraged or expect yourself to do everything perfectly this first time around, because we will have the opportunity to reflect at the end of the unit and edit as we need to. Just getting into my own planning process, I use these documents and resources that you see listed on the slide. You can find all of these on Blackboard. We know that we all have differences in our schools, and personally I've been at Triumph for the past 4 school years, so we were at a stage of working as a campus through the PYP planning expectations, but this school year I will be teaching at White Rock Hills in our founding year, so I know that our planning priorities and resources may look different as a founding school versus one that's been around for a few years. You and your campus will ultimately make those decisions for planning based on the needs of your scholars, but certain elements do remain consistent. If you want to take a moment to find these planning documents, they're on Blackboard. You can pause this video and start it back up when you feel ready. The documents are available at the top of the sidebar on the Primary Specials Blackboard page labeled PYP Materials. Looking at box 1 of the planner, you can see the transdisciplinary theme, Who We Are. There are 6 transdisciplinary themes taught each year through the K-5 PYP experience, and the descriptor for this unit is an inquiry into the nature of self-beliefs and values, personal, physical, mental, social, and spiritual health, human relationships including families, friends, communities, and cultures, rights, and responsibilities of what it means to be human. This describes the entire K-5 experience with this unit. It's a lot. But the italicized beliefs and values is the part that my first graders will focus on this year, allowing them to dive deeper in the other parts of the descriptor as they get older. So they're not going to get all of this first year necessarily, but by the time they're graduating from 5th grade and moving on to middle school, they will have experienced all of these. Both the transdisciplinary themes and the descriptor are never changed so that these connections can be made from year to year. The central idea, however, is the idea that the scholars will work on during this 1 year for this unit and may be developed and changed by the planner. Last year I used the theme Actions Tell Us About a Person's Beliefs and Values, which drives the lines of inquiry that I will be using during the unit. The example that we are going to go through is a 1st grade unit that I would use with all of my 1st grade classes. As I reflected on my box 1B, the summative assessment, I came to the conclusion that the rubric that I included does not actually assess who we are or self-beliefs and values. The summative assessment should always link back to the transdisciplinary theme and the descriptor. So their description of their self-portrait and the imagery that they have chosen is actually more important to this overall understanding, and persisting through challenges is a smaller piece of the understanding. Just being reflective, I know that when I wrote this originally, I was new to the planning process and I didn't really understand that connection between the transdisciplinary theme and the summative assessment. So on my next slide, you'll see edits. If you want to pause and pull up a planner that you've used in the past to reflect on your own thinking, feel free to do so now. And then you can start it back up whenever you're ready. With my current understanding of the planning process, I have made some edits for this school year so that it will align better to my transdisciplinary theme. You can read through my ideas, but most notably, I've created sentence stems as a part of the reflection to ensure that scholars engage in all of those elements with me. It's easy to skip over important ideas if there's nothing to track them on, so this will allow scholars to write their ideas down fully and process what they're thinking about, even if I am helping them with their writing in a small group setting. It's important to remember that when working through your summative plans that it assesses the central idea and transdisciplinary theme rather than art content alone. So you may have a summative separately that assesses the TEKS, but that isn't what this planner is for. Box 2 has a lot of parts to it, and all of them are very helpful while planning each of your individual art lessons. This box should be directly reflecting your central idea that you've chosen. As I'm planning, I often end up editing my central idea to better align with the lines of inquiry and key concepts that are most important in my lessons. And I think that I did a pretty good job last year thinking through how we would focus on each of these key concepts that I chose. It is best practice as you are listing your key concepts. I don't just write form, connection, and perspective, but I actually think through and write down where we're going to be touching on those in our lessons and what I want my scholars to be thinking. These key concepts come directly from making the PYP happen, and you can find them on pages 15 through 19 of that document. And I encourage you to take the time to look through each of these in their descriptions each time you're planning. As I was really looking at my lines of inquiry last year, I noticed that the descriptors that I wrote next to each of my key concepts were actually better lines of inquiry than those ones that I had chosen. So in my reflection, I decided to change these to my lines of inquiry so that they were more tangible for my beginning of year first grade scholars. My teacher questions and provocations will then address these first couple of lines of inquiry, but apply mostly to form. So I had to think about other ideas that would address the rest of these lines of inquiry, and decided to do so my unit would actually need more than 3 class periods. So this year I'm making it a 6 to 9 week long unit to make sure that we really do touch on connection and perspective in an authentic way. And to do so, we need to engage more with our own ideas and not just Frida Kahlo alone. So I've edited my lines of inquiry to narrow my focus throughout this planner and added to the provocations to think through all of the lessons that I will need to approach with the lines of inquiry in mind. I'll be working towards referring to the key concepts more in this unit, and I'm going to definitely be looking at pages 15 through 19 in the PY, making the PY planner as a guide for myself. Moving on to boxes 3 and 4, I know that in the past I've had trouble differentiating what goes where in these 2 boxes. The easiest way to think about this is that box 3 consists of formal or informal formative assessments that scholars should be engaging in to check for their understanding as they're engaging in the learning experiences developed in box 4. So as I reflected on these boxes, I noticed that I'm engaging mostly with the lines of inquiry. A person's beliefs and values are shown through patterns in their behavior. In the next slide, I have edits to this. Please take time now to read through all parts of these 2 boxes and think about what you would want to do in your classroom to develop more authentic connections. And again, I've thought through making box 3 and 4 connect directly to the lines of inquiry. You can pause now to compare slides 9 and 10 and read through these and take any notes. Reflecting on this, I never did have scholars write a statement about how they were courageous like Frida, and so I didn't post their artwork, but I think that that was definitely a lost opportunity for our school to connect further as a community on what our first graders were learning. So I do think that this idea that I had will blend well with the summative assessment that I've made for this year and give scholars a chance to think through and connect their learning and share it with our school. So the second box shows how I have edited for this school year. And looking at our reflection, it's time for some brutal honesty. I pulled this document up to find that my reflections were completely empty. So if you are in the same boat as you look at your documents from last year, make sure to reflect before you try executing your same plan again. This is really important and a goal for myself this year because I know that my reflections on scholar learning will help me best if they're fresh on my mind. It probably would have taken me far less time to edit this plan this year if I'd put the work in at the end of the unit or even just as we were going through it as a class each week, making notes in my reflection so that I could remember what was happening with my scholars. I'll go further into this during our next unit preview to pick up where we left off, and I'll also show you my reflections on scholar outcomes that I've used during this planner. And also remind you to be making your reflections before you move on to your unit 2. Okay, and last, I just don't want you to forget how much fun this is going to be. The planning process is challenging. It's something that does take time, but each year I do change these lessons. Ultimately, my favorite part, though, is seeing these little first grade friends gain confidence in themselves and who they are. So no matter what art experiences you choose to teach who we are to your scholars, this early dive into identity and humanity will have a lasting impact on their journey towards self-discovery. So please let me know any questions or feedback that you have for future unit previews since this is our first one, and I look forward to sharing my reflections on this unit and talking through yours with you. Thanks!